overstatement. You know, when I was asked by Donald Trump to be his running mate, and it was a crazy moment for us and our family. I remember the president called me on the Monday of the RNC, and that was like the deadline for him to make a decision. He had to make the decision on Monday, and he called me probably about, 1 o'clock on Monday, and I don't answer the phone, of course, the most important phone call in my life, and I don't answer the phone. And I get a text message from a campaign staffer. It says, "You just missed a very important phone call." So I think, call him back. He answers the phone and says, "JD, you missed a very important phone call. And now I might have to pick somebody else." So I almost have a heart attack right there in Milwaukee. Our flight had just landed in Milwaukee for the RNC convention. And then the president proceeds to ask me to be his vice presidential running mate. And then hysterically, he hears my 7-year-old son in the background and puts my 7-year-old son on the phone so that he can read the statement that he's about to put out on social media. Of course, my 7-year-old has no idea what's going on. So the president of the United States is talking to my 7-year-old, Ewan. He's like, "Ewan, what do you think about this statement?" And Ewan's like, "Oh, it sounds pretty good." Has no idea who he's talking to. Has no idea what's going on. But of course, our lives changed in that moment. But I want to take it just a couple of days forward from that. And I was, laying in bed Tuesday night, probably 3 a.m, and I'm unable to sleep. And I think all of us have had this moment, right? We've got something big going on in our lives. We're feeling that pressure, but we're also feeling that excitement. And I was just unable to sleep. And I remember thinking to myself and getting kind of stressed out about the fact that I couldn't sleep because I've got the most important speech on Wednesday of my entire life. And here I am, unable to fall asleep, and I'm just worried that I'm going to go out there and make a complete idiot of myself because I don't have enough sleep. And I remember just laying there in the bed, Usha's sleeping soundly next to me, and I just say, "Lord Jesus, please let me go to sleep." And the last thing that I remember was that prayer, and I woke up feeling great 5 hours later. And I'm one of my favorite theologians is a guy is a movie character played by Samuel L. Jackson in the movie Pulp Fiction. You ever seen that movie? Well, if you haven't seen that movie, it's very R-rated, but Samuel Jackson is almost shot in that movie, and he's a gangster, and he basically decides because he believes that God has saved him from getting shot that he's not going to be a gangster anymore. And I'm going to butcher what he says exactly when he's talking to his friend, his fellow gangster, who's like, "That was not a miracle. That was just something that happened." And I think that's exemplifies the debate that we sometimes have, those of us who are spiritual people, who are people of faith, have with non-believers, is we see the work of God in a lot of what's going on in the world, and they just see random coincidence. And so he says to his friend who just sees random coincidence, he said, "Look, whether this was an according to Hoyle miracle is insignificant. There are a lot of things that happen that people think are miraculous. God finds my car keys. God changes Coke to Pepsi, But what is significant is that I felt the touch of God." And I remember feeling in that moment, like, even though, I said a prayer and I went to sleep, but I felt the touch of God. And that's what makes it a miracle to me. And I think that what we have to think about in this election is we have to remind our fellow Americans, whether they're believers or not, that the touch of God is still a very real thing in this country. And we have to make people see it, feel it, and experience it every single day. So for that to happen, and for us to be, I think, real soldiers for our faith, we've got to get out there and talk about it, but we've also got to get out there and make the case to people, whether they're secular or religious, whether they're people of faith or non-believers. We've got to get out there and we've got to make people see that this election, I really think, will determine the course of religious liberty in our country. Because when we talk, my friends, about persuading people, or when we go and knock on doors or talk to people about our faith, or when we try to raise our children to share our values, what we're really doing is living in a country that is blessed with